The boy my father adopted was especially infuriating. He had one of those faces blessed with every genetic advantage, but he was always cold as ice. I never called him my brother, and he never seemed to care. Until one day, a wicked idea popped into my head. I wanted to mess with him. So, I got drunk, intentionally kissed him, and pinned him down. And my brother, who had always been so cool and composed, didn't push me away. It was a wild night. When I woke up, an arm was wrapped around my waist. The hand was elegant, with long, beautiful fingers. It held me firmly in its grasp. I tentatively tried to push it away, but the person behind me instinctively pulled me closer. After a moment, Paul's slightly hoarse voice came through. "You're awake?" I snapped, "What, did you think I died?" But my own voice came out even raspier than his. Images from last night flashed through my mind, and my ears burned with shame. I hated this feeling. I got up irritably to wash up. Soon, Paul got up too. Bare-chested, he leaned against the bathroom door, watching me. With his handsome features and perfect bone structure, he was incredibly easy on the eyes. Clear red scratch marks covered his pale upper body, and a faint bite mark was still visible on his shoulder. Pecs, abs, V-lines, he had it all. I silently chanted to myself, "Form is emptiness, emptiness is form." I kept my eyes glued to my reflection in the mirror. Yup, drop-dead gorgeous. More than a match for him. Seeing that I was ignoring him, Paul went back to his room. When he came out again, he was all dressed up, looking effortlessly classy in a sharp suit. "I have to go to the office now. We'll have dinner tonight." I glanced at him and refused without a second thought. "No." Paul nodded. "Okay, I'll come pick you up tonight." I threw a pillow at him and sneered, "You really are getting old. Can't you understand plain English?" He caught it and walked over to me, a smile playing on his lips instead of anger. "You already called me that last night." Suddenly, I froze. I think that did happen. Last night, I couldn't take it anymore and begged him to stop, but he acted like he couldn't hear me. So I slapped him and asked if he was getting old and deaf. Paul just chuckled and forced me to call him brother. "Beg your big brother." I called him a pervert. In the end, I broke down, crying and calling him brother all night long. The music in the bar was deafening, and the lights were a chaotic swirl of colors. Cheers and screams mingled, making everything feel frantic and annoying. I went into the private room Lily had booked. A few minutes later, she let out a shriek. "What did you just say? You fucking slept with Paul?" Her eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. "Didn't you say you'd have to be a dog to fall for Paul?" I was too embarrassed, so I had to lie. I said if. It hasn't happened yet. Only a dog would sleep with him. Lily breathed a sigh of relief and put an arm around my shoulder, coaxing me. "I know your stepbrother is a looker. But babe, you have to control yourself. Once you get involved with him, you won't be able to get away easily." With that, she waved her hand. A few handsome male entertainers gathered around us. They were all calling me sweetheart this and honey that, acting incredibly obedient. "Babe, which one do you like?" Younger guys are the best, they're sweet and know all the right things to say. I completely agreed and pointed to one at random. The young man immediately sat down next to me, holding up a glass. "Let me help you with that, beautiful." The others didn't stay idle, starting to dance to the music. The way they moved their hips, wow. The little expressions they made, I could barely breathe. Just as I was getting into it, a shadow fell over me. I looked up and met a pair of beautiful, deep eyes. Paul's lips curled into a smile, but there was no warmth in his eyes. Having fun? He looked like he was here to bust me for cheating. The male entertainers could tell from Paul's clothes that he was someone important, and they stopped what they were doing. The music was turned off, and the soundproofed room suddenly became quiet. Lily had vanished, so I couldn't blame this on her. The guy who had been feeding me drinks was still clinging to me. Paul glanced at him, and only then did the guy timidly get up, looking at me with the innocent eyes of a deer. I shot a glare at Paul, my tone hostile. What are you doing here? Why didn't you answer your phone? It was on silent. Come home with me. No. Paul stared at me for a few seconds, then nodded. Fine. He sat down next to me and gestured for the entertainers to continue dancing. The young men looked at each other, none of them daring to move. The guy who was sitting next to me before asked, "Ma'am, is this your?" Before I could answer, Paul cut in, "Her husband." I was in disbelief. You son of a. You guys keep dancing, make my wife happy. But keep an eye on the time. If we're too late, the kids will start missing their mom. Paul gently patted my head. Don't worry, I won't get jealous. You can hire male entertainers, and I'll stay home and take care of the kids. As long as you're happy, I don't mind suffering a little. I couldn't take it anymore. I smacked his hand away, gritted my teeth, and stormed out. Paul had lost his mind. I suspected he had either had some bad booze or developed a split personality. He caught up to me from behind, his voice cool and clear, without a trace of anger. Not watching anymore? Or have you had enough? I won't be dancing for you at home. I stopped and asked him seriously, Paul, have you gone insane? A few seconds later, I was suddenly pinned against the wall, his hand choking my neck. My wrists were grabbed, and I couldn't move at all. Paul leaned in close, a sinister glint in his eyes, the hostility around him finally breaking through. You're about to drive me insane. Mia, you've got some real nerve. You sleep with me and then immediately go hire male entertainers? I was forced to look up at him, but my words were defiant. So what if I did? Are you playing with me? You're the one I'm playing with. The moment I said it, he bent down and crushed his lips against mine. It was less of a kiss and more of a bite. He was gripping my jaw so hard it hurt, so I bit his lip until it bled. The taste of blood filled our mouths. Paul still wouldn't let go, closing his eyes and continuing to kiss me. I struggled desperately to free my hands, finally pushing him away with all my strength. The second I could breathe fresh air again, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Paul's head snapped to the side, his profile exquisite. A smirk played on his lips. Doesn't hurt. Is this your idea of foreplay? I was shocked that someone who was usually so self-restrained would say something like that. Paul grabbed the back of my neck and bent down to kiss me again. He really must have lost his mind. My struggles felt completely useless. After a long moment, he finally stopped. I took the chance to let out a stream of curses, yelling at him relentlessly. Paul finally seemed to realize something, narrowing his eyes. Are you angry? The words tumbled out of my mouth without a thought. Why would I be angry? What do I care who you go on dates with or who you're set up with? Damn it, this stupid mouth of mine just blurts things out. Its defense is practically zero. Paul froze for a second before it clicked. The gloom on his face instantly vanished, replaced by a grin. He lowered his head and laughed, his features relaxing. His shoulders shook, and his chest rose and fell. His laughter made my ears burn, and my face flushed with embarrassment. So embarrassing. How could I have let him see a hint that I actually cared? I angrily pushed him away and strode off. My wrist was quickly grabbed, and Paul's voice was full of amusement. There's nothing going on with me and Sophia. It wasn't a date, and it wasn't a setup. Yesterday afternoon, at a get-together with friends, Paul was a no-show. Pretending not to care, I casually asked a mutual friend where he was. The friend just grinned mischievously. Your brother's on a blind date. You're about to get a sister-in-law. I scoffed, not believing it. Paul usually acted so cool and distant, he might as well have had not interested in women tattooed on his forehead. Not long ago, he even told a friend he was planning to die alone. Why would he go on a blind date? But that night, I was proven wrong. Paul brought a woman to our group dinner. It was the first time I'd ever seen him with a woman outside of a professional context. My heart sank, and a sour feeling bubbled up inside me. I grabbed a glass and started chugging wine, so angry I lost count of how many I had. No one could stop me. In the end, it was Paul who forcefully took the glass from my hand and carried me home. He bent down to place me on the bed in my room. I suddenly reached out, wrapped my arms around his neck, and pressed my lips to his. No hesitation, no nervousness. The alcohol gave me all the courage I needed. Paul's eyes darkened. After a moment, he removed my hands. "You're drunk." I stubbornly went in for another kiss, my eyes open and locked on his. My gaze was probably filled with raw, undisguised desire and obsession. We were at a standoff for a long time. I can't remember when Paul started to respond. Or when he took control. Paul continued. Sophia followed me there on her own. She was there to see Peter to discuss business. I was also just talking about a partnership with her yesterday afternoon. He pulled me into his arms. "Anything else you want to ask?" It seemed like I had gotten angry for nothing, but then again, maybe not. If it weren't for the mix of alcohol and jealousy yesterday, I would have never dared to do something so bold. Paul leaned in, bringing his face close to mine, and pointed to his lips. So, was I just an innocent victim in all this? His lip was split from where I'd bitten him. Even now, a trickle of blood was seeping from the wound. I had no ground to stand on, but I still had to be difficult. "So what do you want? To bite me back?" And he actually did. He leaned down and gave my lip a very, very gentle bite. "Forget it, I can't bring myself to do it. I'm not as cruel as you." Paul raised an eyebrow, his beautiful eyes filled with a teasing, playful glint and a deep smile. "Help, has he been possessed? How did he become a completely different person?" Paul drove me home. As soon as I got out of the car, I bolted to my room, not even daring to look at him. A wave of delayed shyness and joy washed over me. I hugged my pillow and tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep well. Turns out I'm a romantic at heart. I woke up in the afternoon and checked my phone to find a new friend request. It was Sophia. Confused, I accepted and, out of habit, clicked on her social media feed. Her latest post was from 10 minutes ago, with a picture attached. The photo showed a table with delicate pastries, and she had included the hand of the person sitting across from her. I knew those well-defined hands all too well, and the watch on the wrist was a priceless limited edition. The caption read, "Childhood sweethearts, reunited after a long time." Sophia didn't beat around the bush. She sent me an address directly and asked if I was interested in coming over. Perfect timing. When I arrived, Paul was just standing up, apparently ready to leave. His back was to me, so I couldn't see his expression. Sophia immediately stood up too and went straight to hug him. Then Paul pushed her away without hesitation. So Sophia switched to grabbing his hand. Paul shook her off and took a big step back. What was I watching? Are these two putting on a play? I didn't plan on hiding or pretending I hadn't seen anything. I strode forward and appeared beside them. When Paul saw me, a flash of panic crossed his usually calm face. He tried to act composed, asking how I got here. I said nothing and looked at Sophia. Sophia didn't pretend, just smiled. I'm the one who asked Mia to come. It's been a while, after all. I wanted to catch up with my dear Mia. I frowned, completely confused. Catch up with me? I didn't know her at all. What was there to catch up on? And why was she calling me by my first name so familiarly? I don't know what words set Paul off, but his face darkened. He grabbed my wrist and pulled me behind him. He stared at her, his tone icy. Sophia. It was just a name, but the warning in his voice was clear. Sophia's smile didn't waver, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Wow, you two are so close. Such deep sibling affection. She bit down on the last few words. Paul pulled me away and we left in a hurry. As soon as we got in the car, Paul spoke first. "There's nothing between me and her." I laughed out of anger. Childhood sweethearts reunited, grabbing and pulling like you're in a play, and you say there's nothing? Yesterday it was a business partnership, and today you're this close? Paul's expression didn't change. "She's a psycho." I was taken aback. It was the first time I'd heard him curse someone so seriously. Paul reached over, grabbed my phone, and skillfully unlocked it. He opened my messaging app, blocked Sophia, and then deleted her contact. "Don't have any contact with her." I snatched my phone back, my suspicion growing. "What's your secret?" "There is no secret." There had to be. I knew all of Paul's friends that he'd been close with for years. There were never any girls, and I'd never heard anyone mention a Sophia. At the dinner the other night, they were all very polite to her, and I could tell it was their first time meeting. So why did Sophia say she and Paul were childhood sweethearts? Paul's gaze was heavy as he stared at me. "Just stay away from her. I won't see her again either. She's irrelevant. But you know what I'm like." The more he tried to hide it, the more I desperately wanted to know. Especially since it involved him and another woman. How could I just pretend not to care? Why did Sophia say they were childhood sweethearts? And why did she say she wanted to catch up with me? I'd never met her before. But Paul showed no intention of explaining, silently driving me home. The feelings I had kept hidden for so long had just seen the light of day, only to be ruthlessly locked away again. I unilaterally declared a cold war on Paul. I didn't understand. If there were no secrets between him and that woman, why not just tell me their relationship openly? Why hide it? Paul didn't have time to console me. He was swamped with work and had to fly abroad overnight. He sent me a lot of messages, repeatedly warning me not to engage with Sophia. It was as if he knew she would come looking for me. And she did. That day, Sophia showed up at my art gallery. Her face was clearly exhausted, as if she had just dealt with some trouble. Sophia asked me to talk. I shook my head, refusing bluntly. Sophia wouldn't give up. "What if it's about Paul? Don't you want to know his secret? Aren't you curious about our relationship?" My gaze instantly turned cold. "Then there's even less reason for me to listen to you. If I was going to hear it, I would only hear it from Paul himself." Sophia got angry and slowly started to laugh coldly, as if she'd made up her mind. "How can you two face your deceased relatives? A brother and sister getting together? It sounds so disgusting." I didn't back down. "We're not related by blood. If my dad were watching from heaven, he'd only be happy that we found each other. But, Mia, can you guarantee that Paul loves you?" Sophia moved closer. "What if I told you he hates you, and everything he's doing is just to get revenge on you?" I paused for a moment, then laughed. "The reason? Why would he hate me? My father treated him incredibly well, like his own son. And although I used to dislike him for his coldness, I never did anything to hurt him. Where would this hate come from? Where would this revenge come from? Well, you'll have to ask yourself that. Mia, think hard about what you did to him." Sophia's lips curved into a genuine smile, her mood suddenly becoming exceptionally cheerful. My own smile slowly faded. "What are you talking about? What am I talking about? Is it my fault that you forgot?" While I was still completely confused, Sophia said, word by word, "Mia, whenever you remember, you have to tell me. I can't wait to see you cry." When I got home, Paul was sitting on the sofa. Seeing me, he quickly stood up and strode over to me. His expression was clearly nervous, but he didn't say a word. I didn't speak either. Our eyes met, and the air seemed to freeze. After a moment, I silently walked around him and headed upstairs. Paul finally called out to me. "Mia." "What? What did she say to you?" I turned around. Paul stood there, his eyes filled with an unreadable expression. But his features were still as handsome as ever. I suddenly felt dazed. Was I crazy? How could I believe someone I'd only met 2 or 3 times? I didn't know her background, I didn't know her motives. But Paul had been by my side for so many years, for countless days and nights. How could I doubt him because of some random person? So I said. Sophia said you hate me. She said I did something to wrong you, but I didn't. I really didn't. Paul, I won't believe what she says. I only believe you. Paul stood frozen in place, only moving after a long moment. He walked over to me, took my hand, and led me to the sofa. He knelt in front of me, looking up at me. Mia, in this world, anyone might hurt you, anyone might deceive you, but I never will. The only person in the world you can trust unconditionally, without a second thought, is me. I smiled and nodded. I know. I reached out and hugged him tightly. Even though the complex emotions in his eyes were impossible to hide, it was enough that he said he wouldn't deceive me. He was right. The only person in this world I could trust unconditionally was him. My father passed away from a sudden heart attack 2 years ago. Paul is my only family now. Even though we're not related by blood, we've been together for so many years, and he's never done anything to hurt me. How could I learn about us from someone else's mouth? If I had to know, I would only listen to what Paul had to say. If he doesn't say it, then I won't ask. I'll be good. I'll listen to my brother. Paul wrapped his arms around me in return, his long, elegant fingers tightening, so hard that his knuckles turned white. We held each other for a long time, and then I suddenly heard a choked sob. Was Paul crying? I quickly pulled away from his embrace to look at his face. The corners of his beautiful eyes were wet, and his expression was filled with a sadness I had never seen before. My nose instantly stung, and I reached up to wipe the corner of his eye. Suddenly, my hand froze. An image flashed in my mind, also of Paul's face. But he was younger, a teenager. Back then, he was also crying in front of me. My heart skipped a beat. Did I really forget something? How old was Paul then? I tried desperately to remember, to piece together the blurry memory, but I couldn't. It wasn't until Paul told me to go to my room and get some rest that I agreed and went back. Closing the door, I quickly started rummaging through my closet. It held some of my old things, and I soon found a diary. The handwriting was childish. I didn't write every day, only recording memorable events. I flipped through it, page by page, my heart pounding. I found it. One day, when I was 12, a 14-year-old Paul cried in front of me. As I said, the old Paul was so cold to me, so unlikable. For as long as I could remember, I was always the one trying to get his attention, and he was always the one giving me the cold shoulder. My memory starts strangely late, around the age of 10. Back then, Paul was annoyingly perfect, top of his class, a brilliant piano player, the classic other people's kid. I admired him, but the main reason was his handsome face, which made all my friends swoon. I was proud of that, so I always wanted to stick close to him. But he didn't like me. I figured that out from the way he always ignored me. When I talked, he'd walk away. When I asked him to play, he'd walk away. I felt so wronged. Everyone said I was likable, so why didn't he like me? He was polite and gentle to everyone else, so why was he so cold to me? I was young then. After getting nothing but the cold shoulder for 2 or 3 years, my adoration turned to dislike, and I stopped calling him brother. It was a classic case of love turning to hate. In my 12-year-old diary, the childish handwriting read, "Brother was really strange today. He cried in front of me." I thought I'd annoyed him again, but then he suddenly asked me, why could I forget everything and be so happy, as if it was a given. I didn't understand what he meant. He was so weird. What was even weirder was what happened next. Brother hugged me for the first time. He said, "Mia, then you should just forget forever." What did I forget? I don't know. But brother was so sad, like he was the saddest person in the world. For the next 3 days, no, for the next week, I'm not going to bother him. I don't want to see brother cry again. After reading the diary, I couldn't stop shaking. Could it be? I have amnesia? Normal kids don't start forming memories that late, but I really can't remember anything before the age of 10. From my annual checkups, I know my body and brain are fine. But the diary clearly recorded what Paul said. Why could you forget everything and be so happy, as if it was a given? Mia, then you should just forget forever. I had a vague feeling that the secret Paul and Sophia were hiding was related to this. As if I'd suddenly lost all my strength, I slumped to the floor. My mind was a mess. I tried desperately to remember, but all I could recall were blurry images that didn't form coherent scenes. I was standing at the door to the truth, with only a thin barrier between me and it. Paul had the key. Maybe Sophia had it too. Only I was completely in the dark. But Paul didn't want me to know. The look on his face just now was so full of sorrow. It was such a heavy sadness, a feeling so profound that just seeing it made me feel it too. Brother, I don't want to see you like that. In the end, I put the diary away. I let go of my curiosity and forgot everything I had just seen. Paul is 2 years older than me. When I was a freshman in high school, he was a senior. By then, I already disliked him because of his coldness. I wasn't clinging to him every day like I did when I was little. Instead, I took every opportunity to poke at him. But most of our interactions were just ignoring each other. Even though we lived together, we rarely saw each other because he was busy with his high school studies. But after I started high school, he gradually began to change. But affection that comes too late is cheaper than dirt. Of course, I wasn't going to forgive him just like that. Back then, I was apparently quite popular at school. Love letters flew in, and the school's confession page was full of people asking for my contact info. I was secretly pleased for a while, but only for a while. Because this situation only lasted for a short time. Paul suddenly started acting crazy, walking to and from school with me every day. When I asked, he'd say it was more convenient for the driver. If I pressed further, he'd say our father told him to. I didn't suspect a thing, because I knew my father always wanted us to get along like a happy, loving brother and sister. But other things were a bit strange. For example, he would occasionally cross the 2 school buildings to find me, either to borrow something or to tell me where to wait for him after school because he had an exam and would be out late. For example, he would occasionally bring me expensive pastries, milk teas, and drinks, and then ruffle my hair with a fake smile. Eat up. Are you trying to cosplay a matchstick by being so thin? The casual way he leaned against the door waiting for me to come out of the classroom made a ton of girls swoon. The loving way he looked down at me made even more girls go crazy. Damn it, with those eyes, he could look at a dog with affection. He was just banking on the fact that I disliked him too much to admit he was my brother. Gradually, no one asked for my contact info anymore, and no one pursued me. By the time I slowly realized something was wrong, it was too late. He was just jealous that I was more popular than him. Even after he graduated from high school, he would still come to pick me up from my part-time job during the holidays. What a schemer. After starting college, my best friend started dating Paul's brother, so our group of friends often hung out together, forming a small circle. I had reached the age where I wanted to be in a relationship. One day at a party, Lily put her arm around my shoulder and whispered in my ear, "Time to fish in the company pond. What's your type?" I slowly looked around the circle of guys, eliminating them one by one based on my criteria, until my eyes landed on Paul. I probably like his type. At that moment, Paul was sitting on the sofa across from me, his long legs casually spread out. When he saw me looking, he raised a single eyebrow, his voice low and sexy. "What wicked thoughts are you having now?" "Brother, what do I do if I'm having wicked thoughts about you?" I swallowed and looked away. No, how could I have ideas about Paul? He was the brother I used to hate the most. But once that thought took root, it forced me to pay even more attention to him. Paul's hands are so beautiful, his fingers long and slender. Paul's voice is so nice, the ends of his words curl when he talks to me. When Paul looks at people, it's easy to get drawn into his eyes. My heart feels like it's going to explode. Every time my mind drifted, I'd snap back to reality and give myself a light slap. You fool. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. But Paul just kept getting nicer and nicer to me, making me unconsciously become spoiled. That year for my birthday, Paul promised to be on time but was very late. The party was almost over. He handed me an expensive gift, a hint of apology in his eyes. I shook my phone. Brother, I just used your card. Is that okay? Back then, I usually only called him brother to annoy him when I was unhappy. I rarely used his card, so hearing me say that, Paul seemed a bit happy and curved his lips into a smile. Of course. Big brother earns money for his little sister to spend. As soon as he said that, all the friends present started calling him brother. Brother, I want to spend your money too. Paul, brother is so handsome, let me give you a hug. Brother, do you want a little brother? A handsome guy yelled this as he threw himself at Paul, only to be ruthlessly pushed away, which led to a roar of laughter. I laughed too. But what if it's a waste? Would that be too spoiled? Paul looked down at the notification on his phone, $20,000. A small bite for a lion. The smile on his face deepened. Mia, you can be even more spoiled. A female friend asked, Babe, what did you buy with his money? I grinned widely. I tipped a male streamer, and now he's insisting on getting my contact info to meet up in real life. Ha 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 ha. Almost instantly, the smile on Paul's face froze and gradually turned cold. I winked at him slyly, my eyes sparkling. Brother, are you angry? I loved seeing him angry but unable to do anything about it. Every time I was about to lose control of my feelings, would brainwash myself. Living a lifetime as bickering siblings who hate each other to death with Paul would be pretty good too. Anyway, he said he was prepared to die alone. He said it casually. But he rarely joked, so his friends all took him seriously, urging him not to waste such good genes. I remained silent. I just secretly told myself, then I'll die alone too. If we both die alone, does that count as growing old together? It was incredibly childish. But in the end, I couldn't suppress my feelings. I was the one who personally broke down the barrier between us. Luckily, he had feelings for me too. It turns out he was hiding his feelings as well. That's why I will treasure this relationship immensely and stay away from anything that could harm us. After that day, we never mentioned the secret again. Many things changed in our interactions. Paul was already considering moving his legal residency out of the family register so we could get a marriage license. I was dumbfounded. A speed run romance? We have to get it sooner or later. I thought about it. We don't have to. It's just the two of us on the family register anyway. Paul tapped my head. The status is different, okay? I deliberately called him brother, and was then pinned down and kissed until I was breathless. After a period of peaceful and happy days, Sophia reappeared. She seemed emotionally unstable. I heard her family's company went bankrupt, and they were in debt. So I didn't want to get too entangled with her. Who knows what terrible things a person on the verge of a breakdown might do. Paul and I held hands and started to walk around her. Sophia called out Paul's name a few times, but he didn't turn back. She watched our retreating backs, her hands clenched into fists, nails digging into her palms. Suddenly making up her mind, she shouted, Paul is biological son. My steps came to a sudden halt. Mike was my dad's name. Sophia continued from behind me, Mia, you're the one who was adopted by the Booths. Paul could never love you. Because you killed his mother and made him live with the identity of an adopted son. Her voice got louder and louder, hysterical. He's doing this now just to get revenge on you. Did you hear me? He's getting revenge on you. I froze completely, turning around extremely slowly. What did you say? I said, Paul hates you. He hates your guts. I instinctively looked at Paul. He was already striding towards Sophia. "Shut up." Sophia laughed instead of getting angry. "Was I wrong? Aren't you just getting revenge on Mia?" Paul's fists were clenched, but with a woman in front of him, he couldn't get physical. "Who the hell told you to be so self-righteous?" Sophia laughed maniacally. "Don't tell me you really fell in love with the person who killed your own mother?" In an instant, I felt like I'd been plunged into an icy abyss, completely frozen in place. "Mia, there are so many holes in the story. Can't you see them?" There really were a lot of holes. There were no childhood photos of me at home, but there were photos of Paul with my parents, which I had accidentally found, meaning they had been hidden. I knew nothing about my life before the age of 10, only remembering that we moved from the south to the north. And the biggest hole was right beside me, in the person closest to me, the similar features between Mike and Paul. All of this was telling me that what Sophia said was very likely true. I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my head, and I collapsed to the ground. My vision was filled with an overwhelming, spreading red. Many faces flashed by. Someone was gently calling me baby, and someone was crying out my name. Mike and his wife, Laura, along with the Masons, were 4 close friends who had known each other for years. That day, Mr. Mason was driving with his wife, daughter, and Laura when a car accident happened. The other driver was fully at fault. The crash was extremely severe, almost horrific. Laura and Mia were in the back seat, and Laura had almost instinctively shielded Mia. In that car crash, 3 people died. Only Mia survived. 8-year-old Mia was so traumatized that she was on the verge of a complete breakdown. The shadow of the event was so deep that she developed conversion disorder, also known as hysteria. Every time she opened or closed her eyes, she saw a sea of red. It was Laura's blood that had flowed onto her face. Her once happy family was shattered, leaving her all alone. She was so desperate she had nightmares every day, trapped in them without being able to wake up. Physical disabilities, memory loss, and cognitive impairments tormented her daily. Her condition became so severe at one point that her lower body was paralyzed, she couldn't walk, and she couldn't speak. Mike endured the pain of losing his beloved wife and took meticulous care of Mia. He knew clearly that the accident was the other driver's fault. What blame did the driver of their car have? The child was even more innocent. He couldn't abandon his best friend's orphan. He couldn't abandon the child his wife had saved with her own life. Under his devoted care, Mia began to speak again. She called Mike. Mike was stunned, and then he answered, so moved he almost cried. Mia, her speech still slurred, hugged him and cried endlessly. She said she was scared, so scared. Love was the best medicine. After that, she saw Mike as her father, forgetting almost everything from before, only occasionally recalling a few fragmented images, her memory in chaos. Mia remembered something her parents often told her: "You are mommy and daddy's only treasure." So when she was brought home from the hospital and saw Paul, she asked who he was. Because the doctor had repeatedly warned not to stimulate Mia and not to let her face things outside of her current memories, Mike had no choice but to lie, wronging Paul in the process. He felt extremely guilty, privately apologizing to Paul, even shedding tears. Paul said it was okay, but Mike didn't know if it was truly okay. Mike changed Mia's last name and moved with the 2 children from the south to the north. He had no other wishes for the rest of his life, only hoping that Paul and Mia could grow up safely. Mike found that only when he was working could he escape the pain of losing his wife and best friends, so he threw himself into his career. He gave Paul and Mia the best life possible, allowing the 2 children to grow up safe and healthy. When he saw his wife and friends again in the afterlife, he could do so with a clear conscience. That day, overwhelmed by shock and anger, I tasted the metallic tang of blood in my throat. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Sophia said that during the car crash, Laura was in a position where she could have been easily rescued, but she desperately lifted me up. After I was saved, it was too late to save her. The car exploded. She said I killed Laura, killed Paul's mother. Sophia had known Paul since they were children. They were neighbors, which is how she knew all this. But when she went to Paul and cursed me, Paul told her to get lost. Later, after they moved, Sophia carried a one-sided torch for Paul. When they met again, she used this information to threaten Paul into being with her. Paul was keeping watch by my hospital bed, a faint weariness in his eyes. The moment I woke up, he immediately perked up. He picked up a glass of water and asked if I wanted a drink, then asked if I was hungry. I closed my eyes and cried. I kept saying sorry, over and over again. Guilt is the greatest torment, the most painful emotion. I felt like my heart was being brutally crushed, so painful I could barely breathe. How could it be like this? I used to resent Paul for his coldness toward me, not knowing the immense pain he was enduring, and how he had slowly convinced himself to forgive me. Sophia said Paul hated me, that he was getting revenge on me. But I didn't believe it. He tried so hard to hide the truth, afraid that I would get sick again. He was so good to me, incredibly good. How could a person like that want revenge on me? He clearly loved me to the extreme. The more clearly I realized this, the more pain I felt. I ran a fever in a daze for 3 days, and Paul stayed by my side day and night. Every time I woke up from a nightmare, he held my hand tightly. I apologized to him countless times. And countless times, Paul shook his head and said it wasn't my fault. In that situation, my mother chose to save you because she loved you. Don't blame yourself too much, Mia. Live a good life, carrying her love with you. His words had a magical, calming effect. I threw myself into his arms, holding him tight, and nodded through my tears. I asked Paul if he ever hated me. He shook his head, saying he just didn't know how to face me. When he saw me smiling and calling him brother, he would always remember his mother covered in blood, and his heart would pound with panic. Losing a loved one isn't a single storm, it's a dampness that seeps into the rest of your life. He could never get over the pain of losing his mother. He was so sad during those years, so sad that he began to envy me. Why could she forget everything and be so carefree? If he could, he would want amnesia too. He would want to forget. But he couldn't, because he had to remember his mother's face for the rest of his life. The news at the time reported the car accident, describing Laura and me as mother and daughter, saying how great the mother was, so great that she was willing to push the hope of life to her daughter. Sophia had viciously said to him, if it weren't for Mia, your aunt would have been saved for sure. The one who should have died is Mia. Just because she's forgotten everything now, does that mean she's innocent? Let me go tell her the truth, okay? Paul told her to get lost, coldly saying she was sick in the head. When he got home, he saw my bright, smiling face, and a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Tell her. Let her know who saved her. She should be crying for Laura. Why is she smiling so happily? Why? Why? But in the end, Paul went to Mike and suggested the idea of moving. Mia, you will never remember. Never. If forgetting this can make you happy forever, then just forget forever. Paul and I moved Mike's grave back to the south, and then we paid our respects to the 4 deceased family members together. A light rain was falling. Paul held the umbrella over my head and said to the tombstones, "We will be happy." After we got home, we were both down for a while. But luckily, we had each other. Even though this world is noisy and chaotic, and many people can't find their way home, and many people decry the cruelty of society, and we too have experienced sadness. But, we were always by each other's side, holding on tight, forever intertwined. Paul has a property in the city center, and we occasionally stay there. The house is very big, and one of the rooms is locked. I deliberately bothered Paul while he was working, sitting on his desk with my feet dangling and swinging. I demanded he hand over the key to that door. Paul put down his documents and grabbed my restless ankle. He wouldn't give it to me. I teased him with a smile, "Is it full of pictures of me?" Paul didn't deny it, just stood up and casually pulled off his tie. There's a punishment for distracting me from my work. But I still managed to find the spare keys to the house while Paul was away. I tried them one by one on the locked door until I finally heard the click of the lock opening. I eagerly pushed the door open, turned on the light, and my excited expression froze as I saw the room. The walls were covered with many paintings, but they weren't of me. But the person who painted them was me. Back then, my painting skills weren't as good as they are now, but I was still audacious enough to hold a charity art exhibition with my classmates. When someone bought a painting, the proceeds would be donated to an orphanage. All 5 of my paintings were sold. At the time, I was ecstatic, feeling incredibly encouraged. It turns out, it was Paul who bought all of them. I saw a notebook on a table. I opened it and saw Paul's handwriting inside. I remember it clearly. The person who bought the paintings, while praising me heavily, had also clearly pointed out some flaws and offered suggestions. This notebook contained those very words. I laughed out loud. And as I laughed, my eyes grew moist again. This guy, Paul, he's really. Later, when Paul came home, he quickly noticed my extra attentive behavior. What did you do wrong? I smiled at him obediently. Nothing. Brother works so hard, of course I wouldn't cause any trouble for you. Paul ate his dinner, still feeling a bit creeped out. Can you stop smiling at me like that? I propped up my head, my eyes curved into crescents. Brother is so handsome, I'm happy just looking at you. Brother, I love you so much. Does brother love me that much too? Even if you don't say it, I know you do, hee hee. But, are you really not going to say it? After a moment, Paul sighed, feigning helplessness. But as he looked at me, his eyes and the corners of his mouth were filled with an unconcealable, gentle, and lingering smile. Mia. I love you.